For decades now, if you've turned on the news or scrolled through your feed, you've probably seen the exact same headline. The American century is over, right? We are constantly told that the world is getting multipolar, that these new, hungry giants are rising up, and that the United States is, well, basically a fading empire on the decline. But what if I told you that most of those bold predictions are totally ignoring the one thing that literally never, ever changes? I'm talking about geography. In this explainer, we're going to look right past all that daily political noise and dig into the actual bones of our planet. The rivers, the mountains, the coastlines, because honestly, they tell a radically different story.
So, we've got to tackle this big question head on. Is the American century actually over? While the daily news cycle just obsesses over politics and shifting alliances, the physical map suggests something entirely different. It suggests that America isn't just a superpower and might actually be the last one we ever see. Today, we're unpacking exactly why the U.S. effectively won the geographic lottery and why its global competitors are hitting a physical brick wall that absolutely no amount of money can fix.
Okay, before we can declare who's winning or losing, we need to define our terms here. The word superpower gets thrown around a lot, kind of casually. But if you look at the fundamental requirements, a true superpower really needs exactly three things. It needs the ability to feed itself, the ability to power itself, and the ability to move its goods cheaper than anybody else. Now, what's really fascinating is how this framework applies to our current reality. As the whole global order shifts and trade gets more local, and those old alliances start to fray, the United States isn't actually falling behind. It's pulling away from the pack.
So here are the 3 geographic cheat codes that make America an accidental juggernaut. Number 1, the wealth engine. Number 2, the security shield. And number 3, the future-proof wall. Let's start with cheat code number 1, the wealth engine. That is America's river system. Anchored by the greater Mississippi Basin, this river network is basically the vascular system of the American economy. And here's why it's so unbelievably powerful. 12 times. Moving a ton of cargo by water is about 12 times cheaper than moving that exact same cargo by land. 12 times. And the United States just happens to have more miles of navigable internal waterways than the entire rest of the world combined. I mean, just pause and think about the sheer scale of that for a second. The entire rest of the globe put together doesn't even match the internal water transport network naturally carved right into the U.S. So, what does this actually mean for the economy? Well, let's compare the free capital of U.S. water transport against the super expensive rail and truck networks they have to rely on in places like China or Russia. Because of that 12 times cheaper water network, an American farmer sitting out in Iowa can float their grain down to the global market for just a tiny fraction of the cost it takes a farmer in China or Russia to drag their goods over land. This incredible system essentially creates capital out of thin air. It is quite literally free money generated by the dirt itself. And the U.S. has used that massive geographic subsidy, that huge transport discount, to build the single largest economy in human history. Moving on to cheat code number 2, the security shield, or the two-ocean moat. It's one thing to generate immense wealth, but it's a whole other thing to actually protect it without going bankrupt in the process. Geographically speaking, America straight up won the neighbor lottery. Look at it. To the north, Canada, a close, friendly ally. To the south, Mexico, a deeply integrated trading partner. And to the east and west, thousands and thousands of miles of deep, cold ocean. It is the ultimate medieval moat, just scaled up for an entire continent. Because of this exact perfect geographic layout, America hasn't faced a credible land threat in well over a century. This gives them unparalleled strategic depth. It means the U.S. can project all its power outward into the world while staying virtually uninvadable right at home. And this perfectly illustrates the stark contrast with the rest of the world. Think about countries like Poland, South Korea, or Taiwan. They are forced to live in this constant, exhausting, high-alert mode. They literally have to divert massive chunks of their GDP just to defend their immediate borders from very real, very close threats. So while these nations have to wake up worrying about a neighbor's tanks crossing their border tomorrow, the U.S. is secure enough to take all that same capital and focus it entirely on driving the next big technological revolution. That peace of mind? It's an incalculable economic advantage. Which brings us to cheat code number 3, the future-proof wall. We're talking demographics and energy.
All right, here's the harsh reality check for global competition. To actually be a functioning superpower, you inherently need young people. You need people to work in your factories, to invent new things, and, crucially, to buy things. But the data shows us that most of the developed world, and China specifically, is aging at a truly terrifying rate. China's workforce is actively shrinking right now, which puts their whole factory of the world status on a very real, ticking demographic timer. Meanwhile, the US has this massive secret weapon, a working age demographic that is remarkably stable, especially when you compare it to the rapidly aging populations over in Europe or East Asia.
But having a stable workforce is really only half of that future-proof wall. You actually have to power that workforce, right? Well, right now, the US is the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. And why this matters is absolutely profound. The United States simply does not need the rest of the world to keep its lights on. They've totally cemented their status as an energy-independent nation. So when global energy supply chains get thrown into chaos by wars or political disputes, the American domestic engine, it just keeps humming right along. So let's bring all of this together into our final superpower triad. 1, energy independent. 2, food independent, mostly thanks to that massive, incredibly cheap river network we talked about. And 3, ocean protected, offering unmatched border security. Guys, this is a combination that absolutely no other nation on Earth possesses, period. As the highly globalized world that we've known since 1945 really starts to fragment and pull apart, the countries that can actually stand on their own 2 feet are the ones that are going to win out. And the inescapable truth of the map is that America is standing on the single best piece of real estate on the planet.
But I want to leave you with a big question to chew on today. Because while the map is incredibly powerful, the world is always evolving. So what do you think? Is geography absolute destiny? Or can a country like China or India ultimately overcome these physical geographic hurdles with enough technological advancement? Like, can artificial intelligence, green energy breakthroughs, or totally new forms of transport eventually rewrite the rules of the map? It is honestly the ultimate geopolitical question of our time. Give it some thought, and we'll keep exploring how the map shapes our future right here in our next explainer.